Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, could see my hands and eyes moving around there, but I was on mute. Welcome to our International Women's Day talk. My name is Sophie Sparks. I'm the Community Manager here at the Information Lab, and it is my absolute pleasure to be able to bring you this talk with three brilliant speakers. We've got two online right now. You should be able to see we've got Stephanie and Jia, and Laura, our third speaker, will be joining a little bit later on. In this talk, we're going to celebrate women in data, celebrate International Women's Day, and talk about how we're encouraging more women to start their careers in data, and how hopefully you can help take some of these learnings away, things we're doing, things we want to do, and implement them in your company to help encourage more women join your teams. And we're also hearing from Jia, who is a current data schooler, and she's going to tell us about her experience in applying for the data school, and how she felt about that process, and how our slightly unusual application methods made it a little bit easier for her to apply, for her to feel more confident in applying. So we've got quite a lot to get through, so thank you so much for joining. If you have any questions or comments, please drop them into the chat or the Q&A. And if you like anything you hear either Jia or Stephanie say, let them know by using that reaction button. Send them some emoji love. And I will hand over to Stephanie to get started.
Thank you, Sophie. I'm just going to share my screen now. Okay, so hopefully you can just see the presentation there. So firstly, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. So as Sophie has just said, my name is Stephanie, and I've been working at the Information Lab now for just over a year. And prior to joining the Information Lab, so I actually worked primarily within the education sector. So first as a secondary school teacher of modern languages, and then after completing my CIPD in human resources management in both HR and recruitment. So as a recruitment specialist, specifically for the data school in London, my role is predominantly to support candidates through our somewhat unique application process and to ensure a positive candidate experience for all candidates, regardless of the eventual outcome. And for those of you who are maybe perhaps less familiar with the Information Lab and the Data School, so the Data School, it's powered by the Information Lab, is essentially the training arm of the Information Lab, and it's where we train individuals to become data analytics experts through a 28-month fixed-term contract of employment. So at the Information Lab, we are incredibly proud of our gender split. So each year we conduct a diversity survey, which in 2023, so last year, revealed that 39% of our employees identify as female. And although this might seem low to some, this figure is significantly higher than the UK tech industry average, which now stands at 26%. Moving on to look at the data school in London more specifically. So things are looking even better there, with 43% of employees identifying as female. And whilst this is something that we are very proud of and that the company has worked really hard to achieve, there's always more that we could be doing to improve this further and to work towards an even more balanced gender split. So with this in mind, and over the course of the next 15 to 20 minutes, I'm just going to spend a little bit of time telling you about what we do already to encourage female candidates to apply, as well as what we could consider doing more of going forwards. So just to give you a little bit of background, according to the LinkedIn Gender Insights report, women are 16% less likely to apply for a job after viewing it. That said, they're also 16% more likely to get hired if they do actually end up applying. And this is quite a revealing trend, I think, that we have also seen reflected within our own recruitment statistics within the Data School London. So in 2023, we had 56 new starters join the Data School in London. And out of the 1,136 applications that we received for these positions, 33%, so a third, were from women. With that being said, 43% of successful applications were from female candidates. So you can see that trend being reflected within our own recruitment stats. So it's quite clear that women are more selective about the roles that they are choosing to apply to. So what can we do? What do we already do as a potential employer to reach them more effectively? So going all the way back to the very beginning of the recruitment process and to what our candidates will typically look at first when considering whether or not a role is right for them, there are some crucial elements that we have taken into consideration already. So studies have shown that using language that is stereotypically associated with men, within a job ad, a job description, or person specification, so words such as ninja and rock star, as well as those that you can see there on the screen, they may actually deter women from applying for a particular role. So in order to prevent this, it's better to avoid using male-coded language, but to ensure that you're using more gender-neutral language within your job ads. And in a similar vein to this, it's also advisable to avoid using gender-specific pronouns, so pronouns like he and she, but to move towards using pronouns like you and they instead. And it's also worth mentioning here that there are online decoder tools that you can use free of charge that enable you to assess the appearance of such gender-coded language within your documentation. And this is something that we have done ourselves within the data school. And when it comes to the person specification in particular, so we ensure that that we only list the absolutely essential requirements for the role within this. And this is because women are more likely to underestimate their abilities and effectively rule themselves out of the process prior to even submitting an application. And this is something that's commonly referred to as the confidence gap. And so in this respect, whilst men are typically happy to apply for a role, even if they meet just 60% of the listed criteria, women feel as though they need to meet all of the advertised requirements in order to submit an application. Moving on now to salary. And we think at the data school that it's important to be transparent when it comes to salary and advertising salary. So we've got a really clear non-negotiable salary structure for those that join us at the data school. And this is advertised openly within the job ad. So the candidate has visibility of this prior to them submitting an application. And knowing how much a job pays has been proven to be more important to women than to men. And it's also well known that women are less likely to negotiate when it comes to salary. And companies that advertise salary and where salaries are non-negotiable are also able to demonstrate their commitment to equal pay, as they're much more likely to have lower pay gaps between the two genders. So similarly, it's also worth sharing company benefits, particularly those that go beyond the legal minimum requirements and that encourage greater inclusivity within the workplace. So for example, those pertaining to parental, maternity and paternity leave and pay, and also childcare vouchers, for example. At the data school, we also do a lot to promote a healthy work-life balance amongst our consultants and hold activities such as weekly yoga classes and group coaching sessions for working parents that again encourage inclusivity across the organisation. We're also committed to diversity, equity and inclusion and believe in equity not only across gender, but also race, religion, sexuality, class and ability. And as already mentioned, so we conduct an annual diversity survey. And this not only allows us to monitor our statistics, but it also helps us to understand how specific groups feel within the company and to act on any feedback provided. We also run a number of other initiatives with the purpose of sharing, inspiring and educating, including a monthly diversity roundtable. And this provides all employees across the organisation with the opportunity to discuss matters related to diversity, equity and inclusion. We've also established a series of talks from external speakers on a range of different topics and offer training to management and other relevant personnel to reduce bias and to ultimately foster a culture of inclusivity across the wider organisation. In addition to this, partnership with an employee assistance program, we ensure that all employees have ongoing mental health support. And as an employer, we value this amongst our employees just as much as we value their physical health. In this respect, we now have around 22 trained mental health first aiders within the organisation, and have created a mental health hub on our internal platform. So one thing that we have also started to do more and more of is highlight our female consultants and their success stories on both our social media, so LinkedIn, for example, as well as on our website. And you can see some examples of these on the screen now. And the idea here is that if women and other underrepresented groups see themselves represented in those currently or previously employed by the data school, then they would be more inclined to apply to become a part of the team themselves. So I just wanted to move on to talking a little bit about our application process, which, as I think Sophie has already mentioned, is pretty unique and different to those that you may have come across previously. And it's actually what partly makes it possible for us to achieve greater inclusivity within the organisation. So in brief, to apply to join the data school, so candidates are not required to submit a CV. And instead, we have more of an aptitude-led process whereby we ask candidates to produce a Tableau dashboard using a dataset on a topic of their choice. And through this approach, we're able to assess the skills and the suitability of the candidate for the role more directly. And we're ultimately able to reduce any risk of bias. This also means that we're also not looking at things like gaps in employment or breaks in employment, which may otherwise put women at a disadvantage. And it again not only enables us to reduce bias in terms of gender, but also in terms of age and education, for example. So throughout our application process, so we also ensure that we communicate with all candidates openly and share our expectations and deadlines clearly with them throughout. So this enables them to make plans and to prepare accordingly. And we understand that our consultants and our candidates may also have other commitments, such as families outside of the workplace. And we therefore try to offer as much flexibility as possible when it comes to scheduling in interviews. So, for instance, we're happy to offer early interviews to candidates, and we're also more than happy to offer remote interviews where necessary. One thing that we also do is transfer candidates' application across to a future cohort if they find that they need more time to work on their dashboard. Or we can also offer them a place in a cohort, perhaps with a later start date, should this be more convenient for them. And moving on now to the interviews themselves. So like many other organisations, we endeavour to reduce any form of bias within the interview setting by assembling a panel of interviewers rather than having just a single interviewer, and asking questions which have been put together based on the person's specification and for which each of the answers and the responses to the answers receives a score. And in preparation for their final interview, so we ask all candidates to produce a new Tableau dashboard, this time using a dataset of our choice that they later go on to present to us as part of their final interview. And the topic of that dashboard is carefully considered by us in order to avoid favouring any candidates over others. So, for example, we tend to avoid using datasets related to football, a subject which stereotypically male candidates may know more about or be more interested in. We also make sure that we provide all candidates, so that's everyone who applies to join the data school, with detailed and personalised feedback on their application. And that's regardless of what stage they get to in the process or whether or not they are ultimately successful. And if unsuccessful, we do encourage candidates to go away, work on their feedback, and then reapply again for a future cohort at a later date. And this, again, works in our favour when it comes to recruiting more women, as evidence has shown that women who miss out on the role first time around are less likely to reapply for the same position again in the future. So we make sure that they really know that it's okay for them to do so and that we would welcome another application from them going forward. So these are all actions that we currently take in order to encourage more women to apply to join the data school. But what else could we be doing to further improve our gender split and to attract more female candidates? So firstly, we need to continue to review our job advert, job description and person specification, just to ensure that this remains as appealing to women as it is to men. I've already mentioned some of the amazing benefits that we do offer as an employer, as well as our commitment to diversity, equity and inclusion. However, there is more that we could be doing to promote these externally. So for example, on our website to potential candidates prior to them joining the company, so that they have visibility of those benefits as well. Another action that we could take is targeting female applicants more directly. And this could be achieved by working with external organisations such as She Can Code and Women in Tech, and by posting job adverts where these are more likely to be seen by women. We're very big on using word of mouth as a means of promoting the data school, and our candidates actually often come to us after first having been introduced to the data school by a current employee. However, we could focus on more targeted word of mouth referrals by encouraging our current employees to talk about the data school with more underrepresented groups within their networks. And this is actually something that the Ministry of Defence did in an attempt to recruit more women into typically more male-dominated departments within their organisation. So they asked their teams to share new vacancies with 5 women they knew. And as a result, they found the number of women referred to those more male-dominated positions increased from 40 to 54%. And what they also found, and what we have historically seen within the data school as well, is that the quality of the candidates referred to us by those already within the company are of a higher quality and are therefore more likely to be successful. So although, as I say, we already assess candidates based on ability and skill, we could consider going one step further in removing any risk of bias by anonymising applications entirely, and thus making the name and also the gender of each of the applicant unknown. And then moving on to collecting feedback. So another thing that I have already said we do really well and that we are, again, proud of within the data school is the quality of feedback that we provide to all candidates. However, I think it's also really important for us to consider collecting feedback from the candidates themselves, both successful and unsuccessful, in order to help us to improve our own recruitment practices. And by asking, for example, an anonymous survey that includes questions surrounding inclusivity. And then finally, something else that we could consider would be setting targets related to the goal that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, and that hold us as individuals and as departments within the organisation more directly accountable for improving these statistics and achieving those targets. However, if we do choose to do this, then it is really imperative that we avoid achieving these targets through positive discrimination and hiring more women simply because they are women. So just a few closing remarks then. So although we have made progress in terms of working towards a more balanced gender split amongst our employees, and that's in part thanks to our unique application process, there is still more that we could be evidently doing to improve this further. And by taking steps to increase the number of applications that we receive from female candidates, so increasing that 33%, we would hope in turn to subsequently see the number of women ultimately join our team in the future. We'd hope to see that increase too. I've also just included some references there that you can see on the screen now if you did want to go away and read up a little bit more of any of the ideas that I have spoken about. And I have also included my contact details as well if you did want to reach out and discuss anything further. But thank you again for joining, and I am going to hand back to Sophie now.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And just to let everyone know, those references, I'll send them, we'll send them out in an email with a link to the video early next week. So don't squint if you've got this on a small screen trying to see them. So you'll get a copy of all those references. Thank you so much for going through that, Stephanie, and some really good takeaways. Biggest takeaway I got from your talk is that if you see a job that you think somebody might be interested in, share it with them. Share that, and don't just share it with one of your female connections. Share it with lots of them, because the more people who see a job and feel like they can apply, then that is just the more people apply, the more people who will be accepted into any role. So that's a really easy and actionable step to take. So share job openings with your female connections. So thank you so much. And Jia, would you like to take over the screen and let us know about your experiences applying as a female moving into a role in data?
Yeah, absolutely. Just let me share my screen. I think now. Can everyone see my screen now?
Yep, I sure can.
Oh, good, cool. Yeah, thank you, Sophie. I'm Jia Yan. I'm one of the data school consultant at the Information Lab, as Sophie mentions, and I'm from the cohort 28, and I'm about to complete my journey with the Information Lab by end of April. It's just really crazy how time flies, and I'm really happy today to be here to share with you my experience in making a career change, and also the reason why I applied to the Information Lab. So very often in any networking space, I always interested to hear the story of people, how they actually ended up being where they are at this point in their life. And today, I'm happy to share with you about my story. And growing up, I was definitely not one of those kids who know exactly what they want to do. And I was surrounded by this mantra to go to the best school that you can get into, to get the perfect grades, and get a degree in law, medicine, or engineering, and then lots of money. And luckily for me, I'm a bit of a nerd. I always do quite well in academic or any extracurricular stuff. Math, physics, and chemistry, those things are really my favorite subject in school. And then, but then I always find words eludes me, and then the sign of blood actually really make me feel sick. So then when a scholarship that's offered me in engineering to study electrical and electronic at one of the leading private university in Malaysia come to my way, choosing engineering become a no-brainer decision for me. So before graduations, I get the chance to go to one of the Fortune 500 giants, Intel, where many aspiring engineers in Malaysia really dream of working there. Yet after finishing the placement, I have this shadow of doubts, this feeling of like a lifelong career path in engineering, especially in the electronic fields, just make me, that just doesn't resonate with me. But then this echo of like a very pragmatic career advice that say, yeah, don't you worry about how much you like what you're doing, just focus on building your career or building your resume. Then it's almost feel like a true calling, and then this good high-paying job as software engineer at a digital security firm in Singapore just came my way. And then the thought of living abroad with a good salary really seems like a dream come true at that point. But then, yeah, reality really hits hard shortly after. My romantic relationship suffer from this long distance strain, and then this job really makes me feel unsatisfied. And I remember going into the office at 9 a.m. By the end of the day, it was really a battle not to scream at my desk, and I really hated the job. At the end of the day, I would just think these questions about like, why am I doing here? So it's just felt like a full-blown quarter life crisis, which I never know it exists until I experienced that. And I just thought like I did everything right? I be the top of my class, I followed the advice and had a job before even graduation day. I thought I got what I wanted, but then I also not too sure at that point, is this really what I wanted? So why do I not feeling the job satisfactions, even though I was really happy in the beginning? And then I tried all the usual remedies, going to conferences or like pep talks or like career workshop, those kind of things. But yeah, nothing works for me. Somehow deep down, I knew that I couldn't simply find the answer by sticking around. So after 2 years, I said to myself, enough is enough. I need to quit. And I handed my notice to my HR manager, and she was like looking at me, yeah, you're doing really quite well here. What's going on? Like, are you going somewhere after this? And I said, like, I have no future plan or whatsoever. I might just go backpacking. She was like, have you gone mad? Have you like gone crazy? And I'm pretty sure like at that point, a lot of my ex-colleagues might just think that I'm like this boy, a willful millennial who just kind of put a dent in her track records, not knowing what she's doing. But then with the understanding and support from my family and my partner, and this great speech talk by Steve Jobs ingrained in my mind, I knew this is something that I need to do for long term. I just have to find what I love, because when I don't like settle, I need to keep going and look for the things that really inspire me. So then I handed in my notice, bought a one-way ticket to Hanoi, and started my 6-month backpacking journey through Southeast Asia, China, and Australia. So this is me crossing the border of Thailand, Cambodia to Thailand. And it turns out that sometimes you just need to lose yourself to find yourself. And along the way, I have met a bunch of fascinating people from all walks of life. And then someone told me that you don't need to define your career with a job title, just try to think about using verbs. And then it just got me thinking. And after that, I also stumbled upon this blogger, Derek Silvers, and he shared his insight on how to make life decisions based on 3 key questions. And then I reflect upon my career decisions. Although I really enjoy problem solving and the technical aspect of the work, I actually need something more tangible. In the electronic world, it's just too abstract for me to enjoy the outcome, where I need to see the impact of my work right away to feel the joy of working. And then I also practice like meditations, and I occasionally will lend a hand as a volunteer. And after wrapping up the course, a student approached me and actually thanked me for being her source of inspiration to serve others and try to help others. So it was the moment that really hits hard. And I realized that when you really work on something that is useful to the others, it will just keep us going on the path with this fresh sense of meaning and commitment. And during my travel, I also met a lot of like digital nomads and talk about remote work, and then talk about like the future work landscape. And yes, that was the pre-COVID time, where hybrid or remote works are really, really rare. And so this data and AI kept coming up in conversation with different folks. So it's this is the new field, the new oil, and a very smart career move. So, and I also find that there's a plenty of room for me to find a sweet spot where I can really enjoy the work and see how the impacts help others to solve their problem in a very tangible way. And then at this point, my partner and I want to advance our career. I want to change my career. He want to advance it. So we figured out our best move was to head to Germany for further study. And so this is me having my lecture. This is where all the lecture takes place, and this is the place where I speak the best Germans. So I study management and data science in Germany. And then my partner and I had a pact to say, look, whoever that find the job first will decide where we go next. And I bet you all know where I'm going with this. And he found a job in St. Albans, and that's the reason why I moved to the UK. Although I'm always very excited to come to the UK and live here, but Scheiße, I just spend a lot of time learning German and getting the hang of the job scene there, the German way. And now I need to be back to square one and start from scratch again. Although I don't need to learn the new language, but I still need to have a crack at the British humor. So anyway, the thought of going through all this interview and learning the British job market was just so dreadful. But I was so lucky that I came across the information lab. And I was just trying to use the same kind of decisions framework to see that whether Teal hits the sweet spot or not for me. And as I go through the application process, I learned that, as you learn from Steph as well, it is such a unique application process that also offer you a learning experience. Like many other DSer, I was picking up Tableau during applications, and I was paired with Brandon, who gave me superb detailed feedback. But most of the time in other places, all you got was just some flimsy suggestions, or at best, or most of the time you would just get a thank yous, but no thanks, rejections. And when then I go through the data school website, I can also see that it is really an inclusive program. I mean, I can see the chance of meeting all these amazing people from different backgrounds without me having go to backpacking. And Teal is not just about data, it's also about people too. When I went to the meet and greet event, I could see how supportive they are in the event, and the core value of Teal is all about giving back to the community, and that itself really inspired me. And also, I just see that joining the company is very smart. It's really a smart move for me, because it's the quickest way for me to rebuild my network and get a pick into the various industry in the UK. I didn't want to make this kind of same misstep that I took in my first career, getting stuck in a job that I may or may not love. So these consulting experiences will definitely give me a chance to try everything and to see what kind of role really make me tick in the data field. And my time with Teal is wrapping up by the end of April. And when I look back, it's been quite a ride. Beside the intensive 4-month training, I also had a crash course on the British culture. So I've been challenged, supported, and inspired by these amazing communities. I definitely make a lot of friends and valuable connections from my placements. Reflecting back my journey to where I am right now, I really feel fortunate that I have been supported in such a conducive environment, whether it is from my family and partner who really believe in me, or the educations and career opportunity that have been available to me. We need to create this kind of supportive environments in our homes, in our communities, and in businesses to make space for more women to join the tech field. And I'm so glad that the Information Lab is one of the business that do just that. I'm looking forward to hear your story. If you would like to connect with me, how did you end up with where you are today? And if you're interested to chat about career changes, don't hesitate to reach out to me on LinkedIn, or like just drop me a message in my personal website. Yeah, thank you so much. And I will hand it back to you, Sophie.
Thank you so much for that, Jia. I've had somebody let me know that the chat box isn't actually there. And I've been trying to work while you've been talking to get that option back up, but I don't think it is for attendees. So I've asked, and the Q&A box is there. So if people have any questions, I'm really sorry. I'm not sure what's happened with the chat and why it's disabled. I'm going to have to go and have a look at Zoom and figure out why that is. But the Q&A is working. So if you have any questions, even if you wouldn't normally put them into the Q&A or any comments, just put them into the Q&A and we'll use that instead. It's a bit of a workaround. I'm really sorry. So thank you for letting me know, Annabelle and Bene. That's really helpful. And we've got and also thank you so much, Gia, for sharing your story. And I understand the going from Germany to England is quite a jump when you've just learned all everything, got yourself headspace in German. And I'm really glad you found the application process we have really easy and accepting, because it's enough change and upheaval moving country to country and languages and getting used to a new culture, that also not having to stress too much about finding a role. So that's fantastic. Everyone, if you have joined, I will redrop Stephanie, Laura's and Gia's LinkedIn links into the chat, even though you can't see them. So if you would like to reach out and connect with them separately, they're in the chat now, so you can do that. And lastly, I would like to invite our last speaker, Laura, if you would be able to turn your camera on and we'll get started.
Hello, hi.
Cool. And Gia, I'm going to mute you just in case. Okay. Well, sorry, Laura. I just turned everyone's cameras off. Laura, if you could turn your camera back on, that would be amazing. Okay, I think we've got them all there and I can hear you, so that's great. So lastly, we're joined by Laura. Laura, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself? Because I know you've recently changed roles and I want to make sure I get it right, letting everyone know about your new role.
Yeah, sure. So hi, everyone. I'm Laura Scavino. I currently work at Accenture. I'm the data and AI sales and go-to-market specialist here at Accenture. I've started my data journey in 2018 at the Information Lab, and I was part of the data school cohort 8.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you for giving us your time. So I'm going to ask you in this sort of rapid fire Q&A, some different questions. And if everyone can use a Q&A box instead of the chat box, if you have any questions, and I see some coming up there. Thank you so much. And we'll answer the questions after we finish talking to Laura. So first up, Laura, how easy or difficult have you found it to attract or hire women into your team?
Yeah, so just giving a bit of background. So I've been in Accenture for 2.5 years after the Information Lab. And when I joined, I was actually the second woman in my team. So given the context that it was not a big team, but there were not a lot of women either. So what was my role there, the first thing I said is, where are the women? Where is the leadership that we need? So one task that I've been given, it was to attract more female candidates. And that's probably why now I'm proud to say we have a 50-50 gender split in the team after 2 years. So it took time. So it's difficult to attract women, but also it's even more difficult to offer positions to women. This is what I find out. One thing is sometimes women don't feel like they are good for the job. So they might see a job advert out there. They might think they're not good enough. The second thing is that sometimes, there is a filtering criteria based on experience. So they might, again, feel like they don't have enough experience to apply to the job. So it's been quite difficult. But what I found out is that women always go together. So we work in teams, in groups. So if they see there are women in the team, they want to apply. So another problem, it was that all the interviews were done by men. So we identified the problems and we tried to fix them by referrals. So what we've been doing, or what I've been doing personally, it was to actually bring from the information lab data scholars that have finished the program that wanted to join a company like Accenture. And now we have, I think, 6 women that came from the data school. So yeah, the referral worked very well. Another thing that is quite difficult is in terms of technical skill set. So above and beyond, data and technology might sound like techie jobs that women don't understand, that it's too complicated, it's just a place for men. And one thing that our CEO told us about is that we're just tired of being, women in data, women in technology. We're just people in data, people in technology, and we're just equal and we have different skill sets. So another thing that was quite difficult, and there are lots of initiatives that we're running, like Tech She Can or Coding Girl, that loads of different charities that we're sponsoring, is just to encourage women at a young age, saying you can do technical work, you can understand it. It's not a space just for men. So yeah, it's been difficult, but we are, one step after another, we're getting there.
That's some really interesting insights, and this speaks to what Stephanie said when the idea of referring more women, that women often don't feel like they are qualified to apply for a role, even if they are, and also that women are less likely to apply for roles where they don't see other women already there. So they sort of refer people through. So that's great. We heard that from Stephanie as like theory, but actually hearing it from you as in practice is really good to confirm the theory. Second question, you kind of already answered it in your answer. So what are you specifically doing on your team to encourage women to join? So Accenture has some wider programs, and you've got the referral, you've been personally bringing in more women onto your team. Is there anything else you're doing to help women feel more included or more able to apply?
Yeah, 100%. So one thing that I'm really proud of is the breakfast only for women. So we have a breakfast events that we do regularly across the company and across levels. So it's not just one level or like lower level, it's with leadership. So we have loads of breakfast events, or just we buy like a bunch of croissants and coffee and we just eat them in the office. And they're also open to men, but then we feel like, they're included, so they're part of that. But we feel like we have a space where it will be a majority of women attending, let's say that. And also it's great to meet leadership, to meet other women that been through, the different career steps, and they can give us some advice. So we have loads of initiatives. Mostly they are related to food and like fun activities that we do together. And we also have WhatsApp groups, as any other woman would. And we realized we have like 5 different WhatsApp groups, and they're all, you know, female friendly. And what else do? We just also, we realize that we are more friends than colleagues sometimes among women. So it goes beyond just, oh, do you have a lipstick or a mascara to borrow me? It goes more, can I tell you something more personal? So it's something maybe that we will not do either with male colleagues, or it's just become more natural. So we found out, even going for lunch with a female colleague, you might feel that space is a safe space to share how you're feeling. And this encouraged a lot of women to come to the office, to go for a chat, to say, okay, now I feel better. I had a bad day, but now I feel, you know, somebody listened to what I wanted. And sometimes, you know, gender equality is also understanding the differences. Some people really like, you know, just to talk about the problems or the challenges. Other people don't. And we realize sometimes, not to generalize, but sometimes women just need to talk more and to be listened to, even if you don't have the answer ready. So even having those spaces where you can talk about problems or something that makes you very happy, if it's a breakfast or if it's during lunchtime with your best colleague, female, that's what we try and encourage.
That sounds like I want to go to those breakfasts. Those sound like really, really good and easy initiatives. That's setting up a WhatsApp group is not a difficult thing, and something that I think many people could try and implement themselves. Next question I was going to ask you was, we've been talking about hiring women in, but you know, you want to be able to retain and keep women in your team as well. It sounds like you already have a lot of women-friendly activities and initiatives, like the WhatsApp groups, like these breakfasts, that you are doing. Is there anything else you do to help boost retention, maybe around flexible working or anything like that?
Yeah, 100%. So everybody at Accenture has a flexible working options. So we tend to either work from home or work from a client. We can also go to the office, which is where we meet most of the times. Another thing, we have flexible hours. So we are not a 9-to-5 company. I know most of my colleagues, especially female colleagues, you know, they have kids and they, you know, do the school runs. They are basically saying, I cannot be available at this hour. So they will put it in their calendars, and maybe they will reply after the kids' dinner. And that's completely fine, because we know some people have different working hours, different, you know, commitments. And I'm not expecting a reply by 5 p.m. Otherwise, you know, they will never answer to me. So sometimes we are very flexible in that sense. So everybody works at their own timings, their own day. So there are not rules per se. We have a really good policy around mental health. That's something that both men and women have used. Just in general, you want to reach out and talk about your day, and we have like free access to loads of different resources, therapists, learning materials, meditation sessions, as well as physical health. So we have access to personal trainers, nutritionists, gym discounts, which are very good, and policies around like childcare. Sometimes people bring their kids to work, especially during half term. And maternity policies, we have 1 year full maternity, which is uncommon, I would say, in most big organizations, at least. And then, yeah, shared parental leave. So talking about men as well. But then if you have a partner and, you know, you want to go back to work, you might want to have that shared paternal leave option as well. So you can go back to work, and your partner, if the male partner can take advantage of that, and it actually helps women as well. I've seen male colleagues that took 6 months paternity leave at one point, and then continued with a shared paternity leave after the mother came back to work.
Thank you so much. It sounds some really sensible things. I know one of my biggest wishes would be that more events like this one are run during business hours, because the breakfast clubs, if it's business hours, are great, but if they clash with school drop-off, and then if it's clashing with school pickup, that's usually like 3 o'clock onwards to like 5, and then kids dinner time to bedtime, it's just like So if you've got these like great after work, it's a 6 o'clock thing, you're like, well, that excludes a lot of your potential, people who are parents and who are doing, have to prioritizing their family. And that's not just women, that's men as well, but in practice, it's usually the women who are doing the bulk of the school runs, I would say. So that sounds really, really good advice, both men and women. And last question, I know you've recently hired some women into your team. They said you've got this been the second woman working on your team to now 50-50 split. What are some of the advantages of having more women on your team that you have seen?
So just saying at hand the results of the last 2 years in terms of team differences goes a bit beyond just 50-50 split, as I was mentioning earlier. We're looking more at like a diversity and inclusion of different nationalities, different ethnicity. So we are looking across, of course, the board, but having that differences in the team brought so many new ideas. Now, I'm proud to say that the team socials, they're not more a beer at the pub, but there is like a lot more thought around it. And there are a lot of women that can take credit of that work in our team, where, for example, they organize like escape room. There was another activity, was on a boat. We went on the Thames for a half day, went to Kew Garden, there's some museums. So every month we do something different. And I remember at the beginning when I joined, it was always a beer at the pub, maybe a meal. There was not a lot of organization. We've done things like newsletters, so just share pictures, either private pictures or company pictures of events you've been in, and we collate it together and say, this is what we're up to. There are so many initiatives, probably I'm not remembering them all, like yoga into Sky Garden. I personally run once a month a yoga class. I'm a yoga instructor, and that brought a lot of women together. And it's just that sense of community of doing things together as just women, as I was saying earlier, the WhatsApp group and the breakfast, but also doing things together as a team. And so bringing different perspectives, saying at a game, let's say escape room, we are working together to solve a challenge, to solve a puzzle. And is that different views that you can also bring into the business? So going a bit now outside of the social component, if you have a business problem, if the client has a problem, you have not just a man and a woman trying to answer it, but a man, a woman, a person of color with different religion, different background, different language skills, that understand the culture maybe of the client from a different perspective. That's how you can enrich really the proposal itself. So when we go to the client, we don't have just one opinion, but we have 5-10 different opinions. And that's what the client really values, rather than have one, standardized view of, okay, this is what I need, and nobody's going to challenge that. Whereas if you have different factors, different elements, that you bring more color, more, it's more enriched, let's say.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. That's all the questions I have for Laura. If anyone has any other questions, still haven't managed to get the chat box to work, so please drop them into the Q&A. It can be for any of our 3 panelists, so for Stephanie, for Jia Yan, or for Laura. We've had 2 questions come in already. And one was from Annabelle asking Jia, what was the most difficult part of starting over? Jia's answered, and I'll just say this out in case anybody else was thinking about asking her but couldn't find the Q&A box on wherever you're viewing this. And she said the most difficult part of starting over was feeling that all the previous efforts she put in had been wasted, and she was doing it alone. So definitely having someone to support you, either from friends or colleagues, is really helpful. And Dorina has asked, Stephanie said that, and Laura, this might be similar to something you've said, that women don't feel as confident in their application process. So she said, when we say at the information lab and the data school, if you've applied once and you weren't successful, we're really happy to have you apply again. And she said lots of times she feels that that's just lip service from a company. It's not actually, they don't really want you to apply a second time. And we said, no, we legitimately do. So Laura, I'd like to put this question to you as well. If you had an applicant who applied and wasn't successful for whatever reason, would you be happy to see her apply again in the future? Because I know it can feel like everyone's like, of course you can apply again, but you internalize that actually you shouldn't. What would you feel like?
Yeah, I feel like women in general, we take failure, like rejection as a big failure, like as if we failed completely. But we had in the past, it happened that women were rejected. So there were like a list of women that I introduced, and we couldn't hire all of them. We had to make a choice. And some of them, we told them, you can apply again in 6 months, maybe, because we have a policy where you cannot, have an interview over and over. So you need to wait 6 months for Accenture policy. But we actually encourage people to apply again, maybe work on the feedback that we provide. And we try to provide feedback, say you were not selected because maybe you were not, let's say, as confident as other people. And that's another thing that I try always to prepare the people that I'm referring, at least saying, you are the most capable person that we're going to interview. And I mean it, because you have all the skills. Just make sure that people in the room see it. And that's something that if you put all of this in your bag while you're walking into that virtual or physical room, you know that you are the person that deserves that job, then everything else comes easily. If you think, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm sure there are other people more skilled, then yeah, of course, you're going to feel a bit behind. But my advice is try again. If it's not, if it's not happening that time, it can happen 6 months later. Maybe you can have even a better job, a better, position, or if it's a different team, it was not meant to be the first time round, but the second time round, you can become stronger and really understand what you want rather than what the company wants from you. So yeah, my advice is never give up, never say I'm not good enough, because that's not true. It's just our internal voice.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we're just on time. So thank you to our 3 speakers. It's been absolutely wonderful. And if anybody would like to connect with them, please check the chat, because I've re-dropped their links. You can find them on LinkedIn. And keep an eye on your inbox, because I'll be sending out a link to this recording, the resources that Stephanie shared, and on Monday, early next week. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day. It's been great celebrating International Women's Day with everyone here. And hopefully we can all catch up virtually sometime again soon. Thank you so much, and hope you have a good afternoon.
Thank you.